Okay, welcome to our new NAC meeting today. And welcome everybody here. And we see there's one window over there where three peeps are hanging out. So we'll catch it from there. So Nikki, how you feeling today? And what do you intend to get out of today's call and then pass it off to somebody else?
Hey, feeling great. I just had a 5.5-hour book launch today in one of the communities I work with. So we had a great following. It was, 10x what we've ever had attending. So that was awesome. Met some new people that are potential investors, potential partners, etc. So I'm just keeping all that going in my head. So for tonight, I just want to listen. And if I can contribute anything, happy to do so.
Great.
Let's pass it off to Lynn.
Thank you, Nikki. And happy to be here with all of you. Grateful for the opportunity. It's been I think a bit of a roller coaster for everybody this last month, and I'm certainly here kind of for the same desire and goal that I've had from the beginning, which is really seeking true alignment with this group and trying to be able to ultimately figure out how to best respond instead of react to what's been going on in our world. And I hope that we can come to some understanding and build and grow together. So happy to be here. Thank you. In terms of, apologize, I'm trying to get to the attendees. There we are. How about Joey?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm doing great today. I was just wanting to participate in the best possible way and see that good things happen. I expect that today we can come to some sort of agreement and move forward with some mechanics and stuff like that. It's been a great week. I haven't been lucky enough to have a book launch, but I figured out, I hate to say this, I figured out the AI that I pay for, and I figured out Amazon KDP. And so I have been on a tear publishing books, and Kate calls it compiling the books, but you know what, it doesn't matter because I own the copyright and the publishing rights. So it's been great. Thank y'all. And I'll call on who else is left. Just
We have Gent back there.
Jet, you're a good one. You look dignified. I would like to hear from you.
Well, we just got off the hill Sunday morning. So I gotta get this back. We just got off the hill on Sunday morning. So still a little bit in ceremonial space. While I was up there, I didn't join any other calls or anything. For the most part, kept my phone off. So it's nice to be out in the woods, connecting in that space. So, but I am feeling good about coming back and sharing with this group. So, yeah, and we'll just pass it down the line here so my mom can go.
So I'm feeling grateful, and I would like to see some authentic, open, honest communication. And I'll pass it off to Georgie, who is new, and then to Jill, who is behind us or beside us.
I'm excited to be here. I'm feeling really grateful for the last week we had just coming off the hill and still processing and integrating some of the amazing, wonderful messages and things that took place. And I am just hoping to get a little bit more insight into this organization and what you guys are about.
And we're in discovery with that, Georgie. We're here.
Oh dear, Linda, I think you've frozen. Linda, you froze. You said something nice to Georgie and then say, "We're here," and you froze. What did you say after "we're here"?
Oh, I'm Jill. I'm honored to be here. I've got open ears.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be
Jill
me.
is
Go ahead, please.
Jill's a close friend of Georgie's who lives up here in Washington. So
Really good. Well, normally I like to see Linda go last, but I'm happy that she's there, and I'm feeling like I have plenty to do, and I would like to see the next step of whatever this is. I'm a big believer in not swatting at the flies that hang around the manure, and it's about stepping forward. So I'm anxious to step forward. And so, Linda, how would you like to? What do you want? Where do you want to go from here?
Let's pass it off to Melinda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm here to discuss whatever we need next and see where we're at and where we are moving forward. So that is all. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Mel.
I will say, Christina, well, you saw when she's emailed that she can't make it because she has a event there in community, and then Christina isn't able to make it tonight either. So
Yeah, when she sent the same message, sent a similar message, and Kate also said she wouldn't be able to make it today. So, Linda, it's up to you. Where do you want to go from here?
I'm going to turn it over to Lynn, and I think the people who have been in committee and find out what's been going on. And Nicole isn't here. She headed that up. So I think Lynn knows some of the stuff and Joy. And so let's just share.
Thank you. Yeah, I've kind of speaking on behalf of Nicole and some of our group on different projects. I think maybe the best place to start is, we've had a lot of things affecting us right now and things that we're trying to address and come to understanding on. One thing that I want to, I guess, first share is I really to kind of just express an apology. I feel like last week, I read, frankly, the letter that was sent from the Moonies and ONAC to Linda 15 minutes or so before our last call. And it really caught me off guard. And it really, a lot of what's happened because of, frankly, some of my past with ONAC and with the Moonies has all been quite triggering and somewhat traumatic for me. There were some traumatic injuries that I've spent a good deal of time personally just trying to work through and trying to heal. And I think that I should have handled myself, could have shown up much better for all of you. And I hope that I can continue to be level-headed and clear about how we address these challenges as a young and growing organization. We're reaching a time when we need to set some firm boundaries in terms of proper behavior and how we work together. And many of those things need to ultimately be addressed as a council and as a people that are trying to be better people. So that being said, I really wanted to circle back to, we have a relatively small group here today, so maybe we can have an intimate conversation and just check in first off in terms of, everybody's feelings, where they are. We've had a lot to process and a lot has been going on kind of behind the scenes as well. And before we present any solutions or anything else like that, I'd really like to check in with everybody and get a chance to hear what you think and where you stand and what's how you see the challenges and maybe what you think are maybe some of the biggest problems moving forward. And I'd like to, with that, if I can, to open the floor for that conversation. Would that be okay, Linda?
Yep.
Like I said, there's been a lot that's gone on and a lot to process. We had a chance to have most everybody that can and would share some experiences and thoughts and testimony. I'd like to, now that everybody has mostly shared in that context, if we can just come to anybody that wants to share and communicate in terms of where they're at today versus where we began. Is there anybody in particular that would like to start?
Well, sure, I'll start. I have not read that letter. I didn't even really realize the letter, but I did hear the consequences of that letter. But to me, that's nothing new. I've experienced that multiple times with James, and he'll change his mind again later. So to me, I like to say it doesn't affect me, but it does. But I intentionally avoided all of that while I was up on the hill, um, as best I could, because I had to put my focus there. Even then, it kind of, created some strain there. But that's not where I prefer to put my focus, because that's not necessary, right? We don't need any one particular person per se to move forward. We need a community, and people choose to be in community or not. So, so I'm just seeking those who want to be in this community and want to support, and that's where I'll keep my focus. Having said that, not even having read that letter, so.
And I'm not willing to, I've been through it all. I've been through my hurt and anger, and I don't want to spend any more time on it. I've made, I really need a conversation with James, and he's already made a decision based on facts that he made up that aren't true. And he's not willing to listen to me, even though he tells me that
Oh, boy.
he believes is true and blows it into a drama. And I want to move forward in a good way and build common unity with like-minded people. And that's where I am.
Linda,
Yep.
if I may, just so that everybody's on the same page and aware, can you speak to the material impact? I mean, in terms of, James basically taking away the current project or whatever hit the assignment was and the shift that's happening there. Can you just provide some clarity?
I don't think there's any impact. James can't take away somebody's spirituality.
I agree with you. I'm just saying in terms of what his action, his behavior was that there was a separation.
I think all it takes,
I believe that's
all
occurring.
I think all James taking that away does is take James away. That's it. Doesn't, I mean, it impacts anybody who would support and follow James.
I can kind of agree with that, and I would like to speak to it too. I think that the word we're looking for is schism, SCHISM, and it happens to a lot of spiritual movements. It happens to a lot of religious movements. There's a couple that happened while we have the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic. There's one while we have the Reformation. We now have Protestants, and it goes on down the line. So a schism can be a good thing. So going forward, though, with the schism, that we have to get I think that the esoterica and the aspirations are all in place. So what we have now is we've been working on a template to actually formalize the process. And I know that there's some very successful stuff in the organizational structure that has come before, which we can plagiarize with impunity because good stuff is good stuff and you can't copyright good stuff. But we also have a distributed agreement, an umbrella that will allow us, and we've done it, a template in a place with a jurisdiction that's very friendly with this kind of stuff. And I think that that's what I would like Lynn to speak to more. I've looked at it briefly and stuff, but I've been like super, I do stuff all over the country. And and I read a lot too, and this has got a lot of reading, but it was done by Nicole, who I taught how to do this kind of stuff, and she's done it before with other groups. And so, if possible, the impact for the future is we're moving forward with something better. And we're not ashamed of the past, nor do we want to, shut the door on it. It's a lesson learned. It's a cautionary tale going forward. And so let's take what worked and go with it. And everything else, let's set it to the side and get down to the mechanics of building this community so that it can survive us. And it'll be a legacy to those 7 generations from now, even as we seek to heal 7 generations behind.
Hey, Mel, I know you've had some strong feelings about impact and how things have shifted for you and where your heart is. Can you chime back in here in terms of where you are today?
Yeah, I guess I just keep feeling a lot of pullback with anything associated with James Mooney. I don't know him. I've never met him. I've met Linda Mooney and Lana. I've done ceremonies with those 2 women, and they're incredible and they're amazing. What they're doing is amazing. However, James seems that just, I don't know, I don't like the energy I feel with it. And I don't really want to be associated with that because I don't feel like he comes from the heart. I feel like the women can, but if he's associated with it, I don't want to be associated with that. The fact that he can't have a conversation and say, hey, let's talk this out. Like, obviously that article hurt everyone. And the fact that he can't see that, I don't want to work with anyone that can't see that. It is painfully obvious that Sierra was doing her own thing with that article. And I guess what I want to know is, how do we move forward not being associated with James Mooney? So I understand he's a visionary and all this. Great, cool. I'm a visionary too. I have a lot of these things. I don't think we need to stay associated with someone because he's a visionary or whatever. I'm not willing to sell a part of my soul away just because someone has some gifts or whatever it is. Like, I just can't be associated. Like, it's a negative energy. It feels like walking on eggshells. It feels like anytime we make a little mistake, he's going to come back and have the control and power and try to take it away again. That's what it's felt like back and forth with all of this, from what I've heard, from what I've experienced, and I'm kind of just over it. So if I'm going to be a part of this, I'm sorry, but I can't be associated with James Mooney. So if that's what it is, I'm out. If we can create our own thing that is creating a new branch, I don't know how that works. If we have to get whatever it is, I would rather put the energy into building that foundation. So that's just how I feel.
And I want to speak here because a lot of things have happened, and I don't know the structure you guys have been working on, but if I go back into ONAC, this is the 3rd time this has happened, and then it's now shame on Linda if I do this again, and I'm not willing to. I'm just simply not willing to do it.
Do what, Linda? You're not willing to do what again?
I'm not willing to go back to ONAC, Melinda. Twice now they've done this, and
Yeah.
I don't even understand though, because this was not part of ONAC. This was not an ONAC sponsored thing. So when somebody passes an altar in these traditions, they pass an altar, right? So James, from my understanding, wasn't going to be on the board, wasn't anything, right? He was just passing on something. So he's
Well,
already done
if
that.
I may,
So,
if I may, Jen, I think part of the challenge there, and this is actually part of one of my early questions about this new project, was that ONAC was actually still going to have some ownership in that overall organization or some influence. And ultimately, as many of us have also experienced, was a push from ONAC leadership to funnel resources and funds through back to ONAC, which is not something that I was ever willing to do as well.
Oh yeah,
I understand that picture.
I wouldn't be willing to do that either.
Yeah, so look, Lynn, I understand that picture and I've been ready to talk, but I think it's important for Jen to finish what he was going to say. Please finish, Jen.
Yeah. So yeah, that wasn't my understanding. I guess wasn't involved enough to see that part of the picture. It sounds very Jamesish, to profit off from spirituality that way. I would have never been a part of that or agreed to that.
Are you complete?
And because I believe in tithing my teachers, I would have. But like I said, this is their third time and I'm done.
So I believe in taking care of your elders and contributing to your elders, but I also believe in contributing to people who make a difference, and just passing your name on or something like that. Or, I mean, he sees this as some kind of franchise, and James didn't create spirituality or these ways, right? These ways have been around for thousands of years. So, I mean, I don't know. I have a real issue with that. So if he's involved and he's an elder that we're learning from, then sure, I'll take care of my elder. And I do it from that position, not some, like he talks about franchise.
Well, the reason
So
why I bring up
Georgie,
some of these. Oh, go ahead, Linda.
so Georgie is here tonight and how much Navy got? She's about half.
No, she's half, not about.
Okay, she's half. And I would like her to talk because we had a structure.
Well, it doesn't help when Linda's feed continues to freeze. So look, when she comes back in, she'll come back in. But I think that I can add some clarity to all of this, Lynn.
Oh, no. Am I here?
No,
Yes,
you
you're
are
back.
here. You froze, and it was
It's you,
silent.
Steve.
What? No, it's
and
not.
Maybe you.
Everybody here is agreeing we can't hear you. It's not me freezing.
Okay, Okay.
I don't see anybody else agreeing to anything.
so,
All right.
so now
Nikki
I've
agrees.
totally been thrown off. Oh,
George.
I was talking about Georgie, and she doesn't want to be a part of a church. I don't want to be a part of a church and a religion. I've always said, and Melinda knows because she's worked with me, and Lynn, we are a way of life. And so I want to structure this in a way, and we're not sure how that is, that we're legal with the law of the land, but we're sovereign ways. And do you feel comfortable talking?
Sure.
Okay, I'd love to turn it over to Georgie, and I kind of wanted to set it up and whatever's in your heart around religion and but whatever is coming to you from this conversation. And Jill, I'll be calling on you too. So.
So I'm not 100% sure of everything that's been going on in the group and everything, but I hear a lot of politics and type things that seem to have been taking place. And unfortunately for me, I don't see politics and spirituality mixing very well. And in my own personal convictions, I don't feel called to be labeled a church. I grew up in a village. I am a Sanyuquan. I was born into the Sanyuquan clan in Saxman, Alaska, but I grew up in the Haida village with the Kaigani people on Prince Wales Island called Kasan. And as long as I can remember, we did not, or all the things I've been told, is we didn't have churches. We weren't put into that. That is colonized ways of thinking. And I feel like when you bring in that title, all of a sudden it's going to start taking away from some of the spiritual practices that people have, because then politics just naturally come in. However, I do understand that no matter what group you're a part of, there's going to be things. There's going to be things that need to be worked out. We all have to be able to come into agreement and be able to have a council like this where we can talk and share and work it out as a team. But I mean, as far as church, the label church, I don't really feel drawn to that.
You have anything you want to say? We can talk. And these incredible women were on the hill and did such a beautiful job that I would love you to get to know them. Got to run around the forest and be with us and bring joy and delight, and Rusco, her 15-year-old dog. And so I just want to give her a minute too, because she's new to.
I also have one more thing.
Okay, so give her another minute and you
Oh,
go ahead and
yeah.
finish.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to add one more thing. So, as I'm thinking about, because I do feel like it's super important to hold space for people to heal, and knowing like Jill and I have been praying and coming together for a long time, about holding more space, more sacred space, and being half Tlingit. My mother is Scotch Irish, but I grew up around all Indigenous people. But I feel like we're
Doesn't help when the feed freezes, does it?
Excuse me?
The feed froze again. Your feed
Oh.
froze again. So you grew up around people.
Okay, are we back?
You grew up around in the tribes, and you were talking about how you wanted to hold a space for everybody to heal, and then it kind of broke off. So if you want to finish from there.
Okay. Right. And just thinking about what that looks like, because I feel like we are in a time where we have the opportunity to create something new, something. It's so hard because it's such a touchy subject, because there's so many perspectives to look from, but kind of narrowing it down, it's like a lot of Indigenous people still have their fists held tight. And so when we approach different ceremonial things, a lot of people get worked up in different ways if you don't follow protocol exactly specific ways. But honestly,
Frozen again. Honestly, what? You cut
I
off at
feel like we
honestly.
have the opportunity to look at it differently and not say we're following any one specific, template. Because even in myself, like I've been to many different ceremonies, and when I hold the space, I don't try to copy any of my tribal ceremonies to a T. I'm doing my thing, and I know who I am and where I come from, and I feel confident that I can share what I need to share, as long as it's for healing and growth and moving forward. Anyways.
Are we still here?
Yes.
I don't know any of the background, and I have found my own passion for ceremony and these healing things through my own life. I believe that trees breathe for everybody, regardless of what blood they have. I also believe that there is great honor in honoring your elders and honoring your teachers. And I would love to build something in a way that people feel safe, both legally and spiritually, and in a way that is good. Right now, it feels like there's a lot of tension, but I pray that there will be a way that we can find equanimity and respect for each other, and see anything good coming from a total cutoff from anybody. But I have no idea what the history.
And what I want to say is, I think we've said enough about this, so I would like to take the information we have and see what you guys have done. And I love Sierra. I'm sorry that she did this for herself. Karma always comes around, and Jen feels differently than I do. I just wish she had been straight and told me exactly what she was doing. And so I will not be.
You did freeze again.
Let's move on.
You froze at I will not be, and you froze.
I will not be a part of any kind of lawsuit, anything negative against her. I love her. I understand her point of view. I'm just not happy with the deception, and I have to look into my own life at how I am capable of deceiving and just forgive. And I would really like this to be the end of. We've been on the Hill.
Okay, you would like this to be end of what? You broke up after what?
Talking about James and all of this.
Mhm.
I think that'll be worked out over time. And I would really like to hear what you incredible people did while we were on the Hill.
I'll jump in then, Linda.
So Lynn,
This is
Yep.
Lynn. I'm reminded that in our life, not all storms come to disrupt, and many storms come to clear the path too. And I'm encouraged that we've already been working together to build something new. And we're already moving in that path. And part of the need, I think, to this point in coming to some understanding amongst the group is so that we frankly can establish grounds for separation, both legally and organizationally from ONAC, and that we understand that people that are continuing on whatever path are in true alignment with where we're going and what we're doing, and that we can all come together. So part of, again, bringing these issues up is also to determine where everybody stands, and so that we can move forward with clarity. Also to bring up some key challenges and problems that we have as an organization, as a modern tribe and community of tribes, so that you can understand why the solutions that we'd like to propose are significant to this process, and why it actually solves so many considerable problems, challenges for us, and actually sets us up for an amazing opportunity in growing in the future together as a community, as a rich community. So that being said, I agree with you, Linda. I think that really where this lands is that I have a deep love of and belief in a holistic way of life. Of course, in medicine, but in food and how we're caring for each other and caring for this community. I think that much goes beyond ceremony that hasn't been addressed up to this point. And part of what I feel like we all want is that community, and to feel like we have a voice of the people and for the people. So part of this separation is even a bit of a declaration. We've kind of toyed around with this before, saying that this is kind of a declaration of our own independence and establishing our own kind of constitution, that the rules that guide us, and ultimately a charter that's in alignment, we hope, with NAC National. And part of that is, again, I think, so that we don't run into future problems, ultimately we need to come to a decision to make a formal separation from ONAC, so that we don't get pulled into and roped back into that situation, and so that we can establish that we are something new, and we need to be able to kind of rebrand that. Does that make sense so far?
So
Yeah.
I feel like James has already done that. And
Yeah.
so I just think we need to agree that it's time to move on. So he's already said Chris and Sean is in charge, and that as long as I agree with the matriarchs, I'm still a member of ONAC. And so I think we can move forward in a good way and not be a part of ONAC, but also A part of it then. We're saying he now has severed the ties, so we're free to move on in our way.
You froze there, but we got the gist of it. We're free to move on in our way.
Very good. Well, I certainly want to move forward with consensus and really with a model that will serve us and serve the purposes of the community moving forward. And we have really a beautiful solution in terms of how to be able to do that. This is something that we've been in conversation about for some time in terms of how we might approach addressing all of the challenges and needs of the community moving forward. And part of that is actually leveraging a new technology, what's called a decentralized or a distributed autonomous organization. And what that essentially entails is, if you were to think of a DAO or an organization like this, essentially as a digital round table that we're all able to sit at with equality and with sharing and with cooperation and collaboration. Much of the core moral code and the values and beliefs are really written into the actual code of the organization. This is not something that is it's still a tradition, follows a relatively traditional organizational model, but this gives us some advantages, even in terms of how we build on and work on projects together. One of the things that's really fascinating is that it also provides some benefit so that we can operate as distributed, or we'll say a global organization of tribes that are also deeply involved in each other's, the democratization of this organization, so that everybody still has a voice at that table. There's a lot of ability for us to operate as, providing social benefit, frankly, without and it provides so much additional transparency and trust amongst the organization that it helps to eliminate things like, frankly, even corruption or theft or fraud or any of those things, because it creates a very, very highly visible organization that information is shared amongst the group. So we're talking about this DAO and what we've been calling it so far, and we can certainly arrive, but the current name that we're working with is the United Council of Tribes. Sorry, Linda. Linda, did you say something?
No.
Okay. So as simply as possible, if you were to think of really to kind of compare this to nature, is that this is a lot like a beehive, which is that this is not a top down. This actually helps us to overcome some of the bureaucracy and traditional hierarchical structure of organizations, and makes it so that we're much more like a beehive. We're able to operate in industry and work together. The bees communicate and act in unity towards a shared vision and goals and outcomes that are truly in everybody's best interest, as well as still maintaining autonomy and some degree of, essentially that we are all arriving at this table as leaders of our own respective localized community and tribes, and that we want to be able to represent those interests within the tribal council and that community. The primary aspect of the United Council of Tribes is that we are addressing challenges and needs that affect everybody within that council. There are many things that need to be addressed, certainly at the tribal level, which I'm saying individual contributors to the council. However, the United Council of Tribes is to be able to address overarching issues, legalities, organization of resources, organization of planning and preparation for things like even managing medicine, managing cultivation of medicine, providing additional access and affordability to additional things like food and clothing and resources that will really truly solve some serious issues that we're dealing with in the community. This also, to that point, is something that I think that we really need to be focusing on. I agree with you here, Linda, is that I don't want to spend any more time with this whole ONAC thing, because I really believe we have much bigger problems at our doorstep and other things that we need to ultimately solve, including something that we know everybody that's been sharing time with your local tribe and ceremony is that if you speak with the people in your tribe, you've probably all noticed we're all suffering through an economic crisis. And this is not just any normal crisis. This is like a cost of living crisis that is crushing most people financially. And we need to be an organization that can help protect and provide and support our community. And this is one of the ways that we can begin to do that. So establishing the United Council of Tribes gives us the level playing field where we can all arrive and continue to do what we've already been doing. It essentially just formalizes that process, and it creates a way that that everybody gets equal consideration and has an equal voice at that table. Does everybody understand so far?
Yep.
Are there any thoughts or additional comments,
I have a question.
questions? There we go.
One of the things that Georgie was mentioning was not liking being called a church, and I agree totally. But I think because of the Constitution, because of the colonization, because of the legal system, and because that's how the medicine gets approved or disapproved, isn't that a necessity? Joey, do you have some input on that?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Is church a necessary term because of the
Yeah.
Constitution and the law?
It provides some harmonics. Well, when you're looking at, do they want to take a look at you? Do they want to examine closer? When you use words like church in the formal designation and stuff like that, it provides some credibility. And my old torts professor used to call it a hook or a peg. In other words, because the word church is there, if the jury wants to let you off because you're a church, that's what they'll hang that peg on, is it's a church. And so, yes, you can use other words similar to church as well. Spiritual centers, stuff like that right there. But the real effective version is the word church. I mean, I hate to say it, and because I know people have that revulsion to it, but you have to also look at, like in a court of law, not guilty doesn't mean they did not do it. Not guilty means we're not holding you legally responsible for it. So in this case, church doesn't necessarily mean, 3 hymns, a sermon, a benediction, and an invitation. Sometimes church does other things. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm actually using AI right now to write some stuff out on the chat.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I just always had to deal with, we were considered a free church because we needed the legality, but we needed to be free from reporting taxes and all that. And so the word religious and the word church had to be present, but we treated it in such a way that we were different than all the others. And so that's why we kept it when we were going through our stuff in Sedona.
Yep.
Joey, can I ask you a quick follow-up on that? Do we then meet the conditions of that church, essentially the conditions that the federal government and state statutes have established for being able to qualify and get the benefits of this type of an organization, right? Protecting our rights and interests and our ability to act on those. I'm wondering if we follow the charter of NAC and if we are approved as a member of NAC, does it help us to overcome that? And is that a reliable path for us to ultimately
It is. There is
achieve?
The best practices manual that I had sent to y'all, to some of y'all. And if not, I think Steve probably has a quicker access to it than I do. And it actually sets out literally every single step that goes down. But for incorporation purposes, there is like the template that you have to go through. And it's just for the legal framework to create the legal fiction. And then, of course, in that best practices, it's RFRA, best practices, religious freedom. Because actually, this is what's really cool, is you can apply for a formal exemption from the DEA to use plant-based medicine. And the best practices manual that I sent has a what not to do section in there, because there was this other place that applied for it and they just went through and completely did everything wrong. And so this analyzes it and shows what's for. So, you can either don't get caught up on the framework to the extent that all we're trying to do is put the best possible framework. Again, most stuff is local. And if you help out in the local community, and also contribute to various people's political campaigns, stuff like that, they're not going to bother you. Especially if you're doing good deeds. And if you help someone who is a relative of someone in a position of authority and you show lasting change, then the discretion that those officials have to exercise will be exercised in their favor. So,
Do you know if the NAC National is restricted to doing medicine on reservations, or was that something
not that I know of.
concocted? Okay.
No. But see, this is a funny thing because, equal protection of the law says that they can't just let Native Americans do it. you know, and that's because equal protection of the marriage, equal protection law says marriage doesn't have to be just between a man and a woman. Equal protection of the law says women can be in combat provisions. You know, the thing is, and this is what's kind of important on this, is everybody here ready to take a hit? I mean, if you're performing ceremonies or doing whatever, you know, because, you know, I had one this past weekend, you know, with Bufo, actually, it's a Bufo ceremony. And number one, you kind of want to make sure that not everybody tries to do this kind of stuff frivolously, without a doubt. And if they do it one time, they won't do it again frivolously. But there is a lot of respect and stuff like that to it. So I'm all for it, but there is some discernment in who should go and how long, without a doubt. And I think that that's kind of just what the Native American Church and the NAC and stuff. Let me reset all that. If we have a religious freedom test, somebody's going to have to be the guinea pig. And I think it can be one, but the guinea pig can be a 4 to 6 year process. You know, are you prepared to do that for the amount of good that you do? Do you trust that your spirit and intention is such that you will avoid it? That's kind of,
Yeah.
NAC.
ONAC is different than NAC. So we're going.
There's hundreds of sites.
So Jen and Linda and Georgia, you guys are kind of side talking. And so you kind of interrupted Joey. And if you want to say something, because I think Jen could offer something on this in terms of what an NEC is, I was going to.
Can you mute us, Steve?
Yeah.
I can't mute us. I've tried.
Well, if I mute you, you've got to unmute yourself. So
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I think Jen. So you want to finish, Joey?
oh, just basically that I don't think that ultimately they can restrict it to the Native American church with just Native Americans, because that's a clear violation of equal protection. And equal protection and religious freedom, you know, are the same things. It comes down to bona fide beliefs, genuine bona fide beliefs. And so, but yeah, to get a formal declaration that it's okay, it's going to have to take a guinea pig. But you don't have to put a guinea pig up if you're have discernment in doing ceremonies. You do good for the community and nobody wants to bother you with it. That's the
If I
essence
may,
of it.
some part of that distinction that we're really trying to arrive here is that you know, one of credibility and of following proper proper procedures and doing things responsibly as contributors to our communities, as opposed to somebody that is trying to bypass systems. A big part of one of the things that we're even suggesting with this name is really to invite a much larger family tribe together. We believe that we are one people and that we are one family and that we're all connected to the tree of life and that we all have equal duty to protecting the fragility of the web of life. And ultimately that we all come from tribe. My personal background comes from a Norse Slavic Christian tribal background, and I have a very strong, deep relations, and much of the construct of that belief is also and always has been a very deep relationship with nature, and a deep relationship that we believe that God, the creator, provided all plants for our best benefit and for healing, and that they were intended for everyone's best use, and that these have been used in ceremony by all of these peoples as well. So our desire in establishing something like this is so that we can create a foundation of inviting that tribe and that family to come together. I hope that this may even be a position where we can build bridges with communities and with tribes that are spread around the globe. Our own community of tribes is spread around the globe. Does anybody have anything?
We haven't heard
Okay, well-
from Kevin.
Been busy.
Well, while we bring those people, if they want to speak, anybody, and please, if you do, raise your hand or make makes a comment. A big part of us moving in this direction is to create space again for individual sovereignty, but also transparency and accountability for our own actions, and frankly, so that we're not held to other people's mistakes and problems. One of the issues that I have primarily with ONAC is that I really don't think that their direction and the things that they have chosen to do getting to this stage is a reflection of me or my own integrity. And that's why I have to have a clear distinction between those for us to be able to move forward as well. And I think this is maybe a great way for us to be able to begin that stage. So that's what's being proposed, is essentially it's a cooperative. It's a digital cooperative that gives us the ability to communicate, to be able to vote on serious issues, ultimately to have some clarity and the legal protections ultimately that we need in place to be able to make sure that everyone is safe and their ability, as long as they stay within code and the regulations of the council, that they will be protected under that charter.
Yeah, I'd like to just ask you and Mel, because you have the strongest feelings about the association with ONAC. And I'd like to agree with Jen that James is going to change his mind and that this will be like a news cycle. It will go away and blah, 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 even though it was healing for us to get all of this off our chests. I just wonder if we put in our charter the terminology that we're banning a tribe, that's not doing the same as any other religion that's saying, oh, well, we're better than you because we have this. I mean, can't we just agree that we're all made from the same spirit and just say, if you violate these codes of ethics, no matter who you are, you won't be a part of us?
I'm in agreement with you, Nikki. Part of where I'm trying to create space for is that, ONAC can be a part of that council if they're willing to stand trial for the accusations that have been levied against them and some of the serious things that have come up. I think that we're in a stage where we need healing, absolutely, but the only way for that to be able to happen is for some of these deep wounds to ultimately be resolved. And there were some things that have happened that unfortunately are pretty serious and need to be addressed. That's, and I think that, like you mentioned, a lot of that is saying, well, these are our code of ethics. And if you're doing things that are ultimately falling outside of that, anyone at the council should have to answer to those. And ultimately, aside from what happens in we'll say the law of the land, is that we all have obligation and duty to this council and to these tribes as well. We have the law of the tribe and the law of the pack that we need to also pay close attention to. That's my feeling.
Yeah. Mel, what's your thought?
Yeah, for me, I just really try to put a lot of energy in just moving forward and just loving, having good, healthy communication, talking through things. And I just don't want to keep being pulled back into drama. I don't like drama. I don't like arguing. I don't like feeling like I should be fighting with friends or arguing with friends. I'm cool with having communication. I'm okay with having opposite opinions, but I just feel like I want to have adult communication and just talk as adults. And it just seems like the energy with James is it's just kind of this catty, I feel like I'm in junior high again. And that's all I'm saying is I just don't want to feel like I'm in junior high when I'm putting so much energy into just being a good person, loving people. And I don't want to feel like that person has control. If I put all this energy moving forward to create something and then knowing someone else has a higher power and can be like, oh, I'm taking that away. Oh, guess what? I'm over ONAC. I don't want to have that fear that he has more power. And if he doesn't, great, fine. Just as long as I don't have to I don't know. I just don't want to be tied to that negative energy is all.
Yeah, I've experienced waves of in and out, and I basically was the same way. It's like when I couldn't deal with that energetic anymore, I just walked away and I did my own thing, and it went away because I didn't give it any attention.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really where my personal feelings on this lie is that I'm really just looking to begin building something new without having to carry forward the baggage of the past,
right,
and having to get stuck on any of the influence of that aspect of things. I think we have the right people and the right organization that has already been organized around this desire for building something new, and we're already headed in that direction. So I just don't want to constantly be pulled back into that storm, to be quite honest with you, and have a really clear separation of, they can continue to choose. I definitely do not want to get involved in some lawsuit or get pulled into, frankly, the media storm that would ultimately occur of anything that would be along those lines.
Yeah. And just to add, just the fact that James had said, trying to pull, like, separate Linda with Gent. I just don't like that energy, you
Yeah.
know, like, I don't like the fact that someone would try to do that. It's like, why are we doing this? Let's just talk about this. So that's fair. I wouldn't want someone to do it with me. I just put myself in that person's shoes. I'm like, I wouldn't like to be treated that way. I don't think it's fair they're treated that way. I just don't want to be partners with someone that's knows that's gonna play these games. So that's all.
I think Linda's been trying
And
to speak. There you are.
okay, so what I know is that James has made up a story that isn't based on facts. And if Gent is here, James will not come here for a while. That doesn't mean down the line he won't. And I think we can present our code of ethics and our code of conduct, and then he has the opportunity to play with us under our rules. And if he doesn't want to, then he gets to choose. I don't believe in excommunication. And one more time, I've got to say, I want common unity. I don't know how that is all going to pan out, but I want that to be at the heart of everything we do. So I don't want to in any way want to punish or, you know, if every one of us look and go back in the past, there's nothing we can change. So I just simply want to step into the future and draw people who are willing to live by our code of ethics and the code of conduct. And so I'm really excited to see what that looks like, and that we can make a difference in the world, creating a new world.
And she freezes on the words of wisdom. Yeah, since we're at the top of the hour, I would like to move forward and hear from Kevin too. I want to hear his inputs.
And Steve.
Yeah.
Looks like we might have lost her for a moment here. While we wait for them to come back,
she's back. She's back now.
I can't hear her.
Well, she stopped talking. She thought she was
Oh.
finished, and they've refrozen again. Now she's back. You got cut off in the middle of your thing, Linda, but you're saying we want to move ahead, and let's move ahead.
Go for it.
Beautiful. Well, I think I'd love to be able to continue to get input, but in the, for today's conversation is to really provide a path for progress. Even though we don't have perfection yet, we need to begin making some progress forward. And part of that is establishing this organization. So one of the things that we have already begun to do as a group is we've already established even some of the early documentation and the legal construct for us to be able to file that DAO almost immediately, which essentially just plants our own stake in the ground in terms of how we want to define that holistic way of life and living and community and ceremony, how we work together in cooperation, mutual respect, and ultimately so that we also have a means of being able to have value and contribution for our efforts recognized and rewarded within that. Part of where we're hoping to be able to grow is actually to begin building even some industry that will provide jobs and income and resources for the community at large as well. And we have, I think, a fantastic plan that has been being developed, and we'd like to share more of that as well. Nikki and I have spent a considerable amount of time on that piece of things, and we've had some of these conversations. I know we don't have representation of everybody here in council today, but I would like just a quick, are we clear, and are we kind of at least in a high level agreement that this is what we want? We're trying, at least a good starting point for us to move forward.
I would say yes. I just wanted to ask the question, have you studied whichever DAO organization and whichever state we're going to organize in? Have you studied the laws of doing commerce across borders? Because that's one big deal that kept Wyoming where it is for a while.
That's an interesting point. I think that there are some ways, we'll call it lower fidelity ways of being able to manage that as we as we build out that, as you know, Nikki's much more familiar with the blockchain world. She spends
Yeah.
most of her time actually in the blockchain and world. The blockchain is underlying technology that manages really just the digital contracts and the agreements that are happening amongst an organization, and what they call smart contracts. And those contracts, you're right, there are some challenges that we'll need to ultimately address, but I think that the structure and really the business, the model of the organization is what we're shooting at here, which is the ability for us to be able to navigate together. We don't have to be a DAO for us to still be able to work as a collaborative, level playing field of an organization. This just provides a really unique opportunity because it's kind of templated and built out to be something that we have an amazing, beautiful use case for.
Yeah, I like the use case, like you say, of taking it to another level so that we can grow into being the right kind of DAO in the future, because they're all changing right now. It's one big experimentation.
Yeah, well, and I think it'll also give us means for being able to protect plant medicines for all of us and be able to have all of those rights organized and protected and self-governed, and provide best practices moving forward.
Yeah.
That being said, before we move on to other business, does anybody have additional questions about what's being proposed organizationally and how that might impact or affect anybody as a council or individually?
I have tons of questions. Can we see something in
Please.
writing? Can we see something in writing?
Yes, sir.
Because anything less than something written in writing is just an opinion. Let's have some writing and then we can approve some words. I think it's important that we, number one, declare ourselves as an organization very simply. State what our goals are and what the vision. I like Linda's vision statement of common unity. Let's make that declaration. Let's institutionalize that. And then it can grow and become something else. What words do you have?
Really, Steve, I think it's a common unity under the United Council of Tribes, a voice of the people and for the people.
Who's going to write something up? So
We
can
already
approve it?
have.
What?
It's just not being presented in this format, in this particular meeting. Like, for example, Nikki and I already have a really a very good pitch deck that's coming together that we're working with on a parallel project that talks about and describes many of these things as well, the functionality of what we're trying to achieve. So we will provide those resources and materials moving forward so that they can be reviewed and considered before anybody makes a final decision. And this is kind of, I guess, more in general to provide and kind of socialize the overall concept and be able to make sure that it's still in alignment with everyone's desires and some of their early expectations.
When will we see the words?
We already have it developed. Nicole and I and Joey have established already a DAO LLC that can be filed in whatever state we ultimately end up choosing. We have some what we call one sheets, which are essentially executive summaries and clear descriptions of the organization, the intent, the purpose, and the vision and goal. And all of these are not, they're all in alignment with exactly what we've been discussing from the very beginning of this entire project. We're trying to mirror and reflect all of that language and all of that desire into the core document, but we already have many of these things already established. They just need to be shared amongst the group.
When will that occur?
We could have it to you as soon as by next week.
I look forward to it. You have to unmute, Linda. Gent knows he's checking you out.
And then we'll all vote and
Well, we need
put
to read
in
it.
questions or feedback.
Yeah, we need to read it and understand it before we can vote.
That-
Certainly.
That's what I'm saying. But we need a copy so that we can go through it and come up with our questions and everything before that.
Yes, and we will provide all of that and make it a very clear, conscious effort so that everybody can make a something that's in alignment with their own conscious free will of what they want to achieve here. So we can achieve that. We can get the information out to the organization, and we can begin building on that. This essentially is, again, it's no different from where we've already been doing. It just creates a formal model for us to be able to continue that path forward. And it helps us to begin the organizational development of that foundation.
Good. And so we'll see that paperwork before next week's meeting?
Yes, sir.
Good.
So that's I think the primary thing is that, we're trying to clear some of this air so that we don't have to continue to revisit back to the ONAC issues, and so that we can begin really focusing our effort and energy toward truly building. If we can get some of those things in place, not a lot is going to change here. We'll still meet and still grow and work on projects together, but it helps us to formalize some of that process. So I hope that this is going to be something that's going to be a good match and a good fit for everybody involved. Is there anybody else that has any additional questions?
I have a question for Gent.
Okay.
Okay, so Gent, I have a suspicion I know the answer, but I certainly don't, not like you do. As far as I understand, there is no overwhelming national NAC. There are some
No.
NACs in certain areas, and there's no
Well-
one NAC to which we need to conform. Would you please?
No, there's no one NAC, although NAC of North America is the largest NAC.
And what does it compromise? What is it comprised of?
So there are a number of individuals from many different tribes who are part of NACNA. But there are many people who are part of NACNA and are part of other NACs as well. So you have local NACs and then you have NACNA, and there's many people who are part of both. So there are people who are part of like the greater tribe, for their whole state, and then their local clan, and then NACNA. So there are people who are in all three.
Okay,
And
so
Nathan is even part of ONAC. And he's just part of ONAC so that how he feels is so that he can, like, he's listened to James, and so he believes that helps him when serving white people. But yeah, I
And-
don't believe that's what ERFA says. I haven't ever found anything that says that would protect them. But there may be. But I know plenty of people who are roadmen who are in other NACs and have never had anything to do with ONAC and serve white people. So
and there's no one NAC that has to give approval for any NAC to be an NAC, is there?
nope.
Yeah, see, so
there's not.
this concern about being in alignment with some NAC is just too nebulous to worry about. And I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah,
So-
because any different NACs have their own rules, their own traditions, their own
Right on.
everything, except for all of them, peyote is their sacrament and their only sacrament.
Yeah, for all of them.
Unless there are some that I don't know of that where it's different. Like I don't know everything. That's just my understanding. So.
Yeah, and so when we first had our first meetings, we talked about some groups could join under the name of a church, some groups could join under the name of a charity, some groups could join under the name of NAC, and they could join this common unity with any of those designations, and it would be one place, an umbrella for all of humanity to come as brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and ancestors. And so there's no NAC that we have to worry about. That's one thing I want to.
Well,
Yeah,
point of
that-
clarity, Steve, if I may, this is back kind of to Joey, is that part of what I'm trying to be able to communicate is just that we ultimately need to be able to have the same legal protections that we have been operating under, so that people aren't doing anything that's outside of the law. And
Okay.
so what I'm talking about is just being able to provide a path forward that won't take us out of alignment of the path that we've already been following. That's all.
But Lynn, this promise of having an organization or a church that provides legal protection is a myth. It's a fiction. Joey has said, thank you, Jen. Jen just affirmed. Joey has stated over and over again, as I've read these articles, that you have to, no matter what kind of institution you think you have or what kind of name, you have to coincide with local jurisprudence. If you have a DA in your district who has a budget and wants to make you, whether you're a church or an NGO or nonprofit, if they want to make a thing out of you, they'll make a thing out of you. So any organization that belongs to this organization just needs to live in compliance with their local jurisdiction, with the rules and regulations in their local jurisdiction. Joey, do you want to comment on that? Oh, you're unmuted. You're not muted, Joey. Whoops, still can't hear you, my friend. You gotta push. There you go.
Yeah, we go. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But this is where we come back to the aspirational statements, that I do think that for some sort of affiliation, there does need to be some core ethical considerations, and there does need to be, some sort of exhibition of some core traits, again, discernment's there. But here's the thing about opening up to everybody. And I hate using this example, but it's the best example, because there may be some Muslims on here that aren't radical. But when you have a community of Muslims, whenever the Muslims are under like 5%, they're willing to do pretty much whatever they need to do in this, that, and the other. When you see the Muslim community starting to get at about 10% of the community, they're going to start demanding special favors and this, that, and the other. Once the Muslim community hits between 15 and 18%, the chances are at that point they have enough that they can get a representative into the local governing authority. Once that happens, they subtly start changing the rules so that before you know it, these people that are actually contrary to what the core belief of the original entity was has overtaken and subsumed the organization and used its own rules against it. So once again, aspirationally letting everybody in is indeed fine. Having, the thing that distinguishes us is we have these beliefs and these ethics that we contribute to and that we believe in and that we follow honestly. There's nothing wrong with discrimination and discernment. If we look at the Elysian mysteries and the mystery cults of ancient Greece, you had to do some study, you had to do some other stuff to kind of get involved in it, to be initiated, and it takes some time. So yes, everybody at the local level needs to kind of have their collective effluvia together, as it were. But I think that to have the symbol or the logo or the brand that means something, we do have to have some kind of guidelines at the upper level, but not to the minutia.
So we need a name and we need a code of ethics.
Yeah.
And maybe even need an organizational document.
Yep.
Okay, good. I think those are important. And I think any other conversation is swatting at flies. I do want to say one thing. I actually want to say two things, but I'm going to focus on this one thing. There was a council of Indians that were meeting together. I heard about this years ago. Winston Mason, Navajo security guy, shared this story with me. There was a big conference of all these tribes, and they'd met together for 4 or 5 weeks, and they were coming up with all these things they were going to do. And all of a sudden, a Cherokee walked in there with an owl feather in their hair, and it shut down the whole thing. And I see, because Cherokee think owls are okay, and Navajos think that the owls are from the devil. I was sitting with Winston Mason in my house, and he told me that if an owl came into his house, he would never come into my house. It came into my house, he would never come into my house again, which was really interesting because I just was doing some taxidermy on an owl, and I literally had a 4-foot wingspan owl up on my cupboard. If he would have just looked up over my head, he would have seen that. He would have never come back into my house. So we've got to overcome a lot of small-mindedness, a lot of wounding, there's been a lot of wounding, and there's a lot of healing that needs to go on. And I love this idea that we're going to create a gathering place and we're going to hold a space for healing. And there's no NAC that we need to conform with. There's no institution that's going to give us any protection. It's got to come from our hearts, and we've got to have an open anybody who wants to join us can join us, as long as they stay in, as long as they abide within our code of ethics and code of conduct. That's where we need to go. So let's see the documents for this new organization.
Well, one, again, point of clarity here is I think that part of what we're trying to address is the fact that I don't think any one of us here wants to potentially risk that or risk our life or livelihood or freedom to test that theory. And I know that that has happened in the past. And I think that we're at a point now where we can at least make sure that we're avoiding all of the primary challenges and traps of getting ourselves into trouble. And that if somebody within the council or within this organization ultimately does does something illegal, we'll say, that does not, that everyone is held accountable for their own actions, and that other people aren't, the organization isn't going to be torn down and everything else fall apart if one person chooses the wrong path. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, beautiful.
So every time I do medicine, I do something illegal.
That's a fact.
I
So,
already know that, right? Spiritually, I know it's the right thing to do, right? Morally, all of that. The letter of the law states that it is, because I work with, all of these different medicines. And I wish it wasn't the case, but that is the case. So I'm trying to understand what you're saying here, Len.
I'm just trying to say that I know that none of us want to get into trouble for following our faith and doing what we know
Yeah.
is right, what we believe is right.
Oh yeah.
And we're trying to be able to create a step forward in what has been, to create a better model that ultimately can keep more of us out of trouble. For example, that even when it comes to medicine, we'll say cultivation and serving medicine, that we can internally, with this type of an organization, we can internally regulate that entire process. We can self-regulate what we'll call transaction flow of cultivate, from seed to consumption, that we're able to have best practices that frankly even would be better than what most states have in place, to be able to track and trace all of that within the organization. So we can kind of self-regulate in that way, and we can at least follow certain guidelines and rules that we've established for ourselves to be able to establish our commitment to a path. Does that make sense, Dergent?
Yeah, it does.
well, but here,
Yeah.
I would like to say,
And that's exactly what I do, right? I only work with medicine in ceremony, and I don't work with it anywhere else. And with that, I've never had problems. And that's just just this one anecdotal bit of evidence, but I just believe that when we do that, that it's going to greatly decrease our risk.
That's fine.
But I think the important way to do that is to know completely what the laws are around it, and know that we're working with it in a good way. But if we can go the extra step, um, like you're talking about with the entire organization, so that everybody's clear exactly what the law is and what the spirit, both the letter and the spirit of the law are, I think that's going to greatly decrease the risk. And I
also,
think that is why I think the energy behind when you say something and it's not complete. Turn this on. When the energy is such that you say that there's protections that there aren't, and then
I didn't understand.
and then you have this energy of profiting off from it, I think that's going to attract all kinds of problems.
now
So
one of
I
the,
I
agree.
think, like many people here, I think that part of what we'd love to be able to be in a position for financially and as an organization is to be providing these ceremonies without charge. And the people can certainly be compensated for both cultivation and serving and additional services, and financially compensated very well. But that we're creating a system and creating, frankly, the resources and organization we need to provide for something like that to occur, and for us to be able to get to a point where we can establish that the expanded language of protecting our rights with plant medicines also includes, frankly, a deep belief about our natural, a choice of method of treatment of natural plant medicines versus synthetic and the pharmaceutical industry. And I think that part of that is that we're trying to be able to ultimately establish that this is the quality of life and the way of life that we are walking, and that we want to be able to have the protection to be able to continue down that path and to walk in the right road. And that's all that I'm really trying to bring to the table. I'm not trying to create special considerations or make promises that don't exist or can't exist, but to expand that language so that we're ultimately better protected as a community.
Also, if
Yeah,
I may,
Joy.
we can do educational stuff as well, because, if one member of the community that we're involved in was to say, get cased up for something stupid, like say that in regards to Linda's and their situation, that Sierra had been a CI instead of a reporter. Okay. And we know that something goes down. All right. If we as an organization produce educational videos and subsequently when one of our members was to catch a case, and then we blanket the airwaves, both on the public access TV and the local media, we target YouTube ads for educational stuff on plant medicine. This is how you sway the mindset of the people that will be sitting on that jury. This is how you nullify that jury. This is how you take advantage of the conscience of the community by subtly swaying it. Like if they were to be caught, say, in Clark County, Nevada, where I'm at, and I knew that they'd be pulling a jury pool from certain zip codes, then I would make sure that I popped YouTube ads to everybody that was ascertainably on that jury list that extolled the virtues of plant medicine. You know what I'm saying? And it would just be ubiquitous in the background. And so, but see, that's what we can do as an organization through education as well. You can actually stop the jury process like that if we know where it's coming. So, that could be a unique advantage to people that would be a part of our organization, is that we have the educational wherewithal and the database and the knowledge to just saturate the local community and make it okay in that community. So they're even asking the police chief, man, why are you casing up that nice fella, man? He's helping people.
Cool,
You got to
Joy.
think like that.
Thank you, Joey. I think it's an important part. We have 6 minutes left to go. We're looking forward to documentation that we can actually look at the words next week, so we know we have something to vote on. And we have we have 6 minutes left or so to share. So Linda, you want to invite somebody to, if you want to make a statement, you can, but if you want to invite somebody to share how they feel and what their takeaway is today, and we'll pass that around for everybody so we can adjourn.
I'm going to start with lovely Melinda.
How do you feel and what's your takeaway?
Feeling good. I think this has been a good conversation, and I can hear what everyone's saying, and I hear what Lynn's saying of just wanting to be protected as much as we can. And then I think, but just knowing there's always going to be a little bit of a risk here, just because, we see this as a medicine. Some people unfortunately have lumped it into the drug category. So no matter what, there's a little bit of a risk, but I think there's a lot that we can do to get us to be as protected as we can and do it in a good way. And then the odds are way higher that we won't have to worry about that and put fear into the worst thing that could possibly happen, and not have to just keep putting our energy into like love and moving forward and knowing we're doing this in a good way and that this is making a difference and that we'll be protected, and just put the energy into trusting that. So that's kind of my takeaway with this, is just keep moving forward what we're doing it the best that we know how to try to protect ourselves and do it in a good way. And that's all we can do, and keep moving forward. And I will pass it to Nikki.
Yeah, I agree. Walk in love, not fear, and move forward, not hang out in the past. So I'm all for it. Ready.
How do you feel and what's your takeaway?
I feel good. I feel hopeful that this is the end of the drama and that we can move forward in a good way. And both the organization for the NAC, or Unity of Tribes, as well as these potential profit centers where we teach people to provide for themselves, and we provide for them in various ways. I'm looking forward to that because I see that as a recession-proof kind of way to approach what's coming, because we're all about to be taken for a ride.
Pass it on to someone.
Yeah, let me pass that to Joey.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I think we got a lot done today. I think that we're getting into the pragmatics of it, and everybody's just, man, y'all are all great. You just want to look out after one another and want to spread this message, and such as that. So I'll pass it on to Lynn.
Thank you. I feel really quite good. a little bit heartbroken coming into some of these meetings personally, just because I felt a little bit defeated that we were losing traction. And I know that that things are moving in the right direction. I'm looking for progress over perfection, and I think that we've achieved that. I'm excited to move beyond this because we have such, like Nikki mentioned, so many more exciting projects that are ready to go, that are really going to probably blow many people's minds in the community, and to be able to organize people around and provide much more to this community than I think anybody ever anticipated. So I'm extremely grateful to be a part of this group and to be able to know all of you and to be able to contribute. Thank you for allowing me my voice in this council as well. And so with that, aho. Apologize, I'm just switching screens here. Kevin, you've been here, but we haven't heard much from you. Do you want to tell us how you're doing? It's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, sorry. I've been absent the last few meetings. I've just been having a hard time. It's like in the middle of the day for us, so get kids and getting off of school. But I'm kind of, I missed a lot. It seems like in the last couple of meetings. So I'm guessing James separated from us, and I'm just trying to figure out like the code of ethics. I love all that. Like everybody separating, accountability. I'm just figuring out a way to catch up with everybody. And sorry, been away.
Want to pass it on?
Who hasn't gone yet?
Gent,
Jen.
you got to unmute, Gent.
Kevin, how are you feeling about everything?
Like for me with the whole church, like I was all new to it before when I started in the council, so I don't feel like it makes much of it does for me doesn't feel much of a difference. But I feel good in the sense of having a standard for all the churches, and making a way where just in case one person messes up, it doesn't mess up the whole everybody else. Like, I like all that. From what I feel about everything, I'm ready to go and get to work, and I'll be more present for sure. I finally got a routine down.
Great. You want to pass it on to Gent? Kevin.
Yeah, there you go, Jet.
Sure. So, I don't know. I've been doing ceremonies for 40 years. I've seen this kind of thing everywhere, and things come and go, people come and go, organizations come and go, but the medicine's always still here. So I just keep, and Creator's always still here. So that's my focus. And I'll support, any organization or any of the people who are walking this path in a way that feels good. So, and I appreciate all of the knowledge that you all have, and that everybody's putting so much effort in to create something that will help support the people in a good way. And that's my only focus. So I feel really hopeful that that'll continue.
Is Jill or Georgia there? Georgie? How are you feeling, Georgie?
Hey, I'm feeling really good about everything I'm hearing, and it's nice to hear you guys all working things out, and it sounds really hopeful and exciting. It's a tough place to be, but sometimes we go through this to get to where we have to be.
Cool. Is Jill there with
Thank
you
you.
still?
No, Jill's with her son. He's
Okay.
jumping, so my mom.
Okay, so I'll go and then I'll give it to your mom.
Okay.
I really would like to say this in a more prickly sort of way. but I'm going to say it as calmly as I can. I'm really grateful for James Mooney.
Yeah.
Because
Me too.
James Mooney, what, you too, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Geez,
Yeah, me too.
I tell you, it was, with all the history, he had enough insight to call up Linda Stone and say, create something. And Linda Stone said, I'm going to create common unity. And she brought all of us together. That, if it hadn't been for that, you could put a blank, fill it in yourself based on your experience. If it hadn't been for James, that blank, fill it in, we would not be here today. I am so grateful for James and his vision. Linda, how are you feeling and what's your takeaway?
I'm just feeling so much love and gratitude for all of you to, in the midst of chaos, just walking forward. And let's just walk in forward in unconditional love on the red path. And I'm just so proud of all of you. You just always amaze me with your wisdom and your love. And let's create a new world with everyone who is attracted to our vibration. Aho.
Oh, see you
And
next week.
Steve, actually, before we finish up here, I would like to be able to propose. So next week, we'll present the United Council of Tribes outline, and I'd also like to propose that we bring forward what Nikki and I have been working on as well, and present at least a high-level summary of the community surplus exchange, which I think is something that I think will help to settle a lot of unresolved feelings for members of the community in terms of meeting just financial and basic necessities needs that need to be addressed, I think, very early on in this conversation. I'd like to bring that forward if Nikki and I can have something ready to prepare as well. I'd just like to include that into the agenda.
It's up to Linda.
I think that's more than enough. And I would, even though we get this within a week, I would love to have people have a week or however long it takes, a week or two, to really go through things and come up with all of their questions. So I'm saying let's present everything, answer the questions we can, and let people sit in prayer for a couple of weeks before we vote on anything. So, because each of us, if we sit in prayer, we're going to come up with the very best documents that we can come up with. So please present everything next week, and then make sure that we all get a paper copy so that we can read, ask questions, and pray.
And by the way, everybody, there's a PDF right now in the chat of Joey's document. One more time, it's in the chat in the PDF. I'll leave the meeting up for a minute, so those of you who can right click on that PDF and download it onto your computer. But that ends our meeting, right, Linda?
Yes.
All right.
Love
cool.
you all.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to stop the recording.
Mhm.